I feel so alone. I just want to clam up and go back to my shell. But I can't. I have to be strong for my kids. They need me. People saw a woman with a good job, a smile on her face, and a ring on her finger. They had no idea I was paying all the bills, parenting alone, and being emotionally destroyed behind closed doors. I was a married, single mom, pretending I was okay, but I wasn't. This is my story. We were a happy family of 7 with 4 dogs. I was a hardworking woman working full-time, a loving and supportive wife who took care of the home and family, while my husband focused on home restoration projects. I was managing the bills, household, home, even the lawn. I was preparing meals, caring for the kids' needs, and being heavily involved in their schoolwork, extracurricular activities, and more. I was a strong mom, able to handle a lot of things on my own. We went to church often, every Sunday, seemed like, and we used to always bring the kids. We went on family outings, camping trips, and school events together. My husband and I were in a partnership with decisions that we made. We had great communication. I felt lucky to be married, and I was happy to show off my ring. My husband exerted power and control through various forms of abuse. Financial abuse. I was the sole provider for the family. I paid for everything, including outings, vacations, takeouts, kids' activities, and anything and everything that he would ask me for, I would get it. My husband kept his own money, however, to himself. I never saw it, and he rarely spent any of that on the family. I was forced to track my shopping. I was only allowed to go to 1 to 2 stores a week. And in an effort to save money, I would like to go to stores that had sales. And I tried to plead my case, but there was no going away. He was okay with me spending more money if it involved just going to 1 or 2 places. And it was very tough because Dollar Tree doesn't have healthy food and vegetables, but sometimes I wanted to go there because of the affordable prices. And I had to dress according to his wishes. I had to be mainly covered up. And because I was only allowed to go to 1 or 2 places, I didn't buy a lot of clothing for myself. I either had to do it online or try to fit a thrift store somewhere in between one of those 2 places I was allowed to go to. And also, because I paid for the bills, I also paid for water. And my husband would take 4 to 5 hours of a shower. And he did that several times where he would just be in the shower for 4 to 5 hours. And I would plead to him to please turn off the water to save costs. And my plea was totally ignored. So there were months that I paid a lot in water. And I wasn't manipulated to believe that I wasn't supporting him and that I cared more about money and saving money than for his well-being. Verbal abuse. Because I was working a full-time job, I was often exhausted and stressed, but I still had to take care of the family. My husband would sleep all the time, and I had to keep the kids quiet while he slept. Otherwise, if he was to wake up and have his sleep disrupted, I was to blame, and I would be called all kinds of names. I was criticized for the meals I prepared, and if it wasn't to his liking, I would be force-fed to eat it, or even eat some of the food. Even if I didn't want to, I was force-fed too. And if I didn't, I wasn't being supportive, and I was called various names as well. I was directed to enforce rules upon the children, to discipline them. Whatever rules that he wanted to impose on them, I was responsible for enforcing that. And when they didn't follow those rules, and they were being disrespectful, I was to blame. I remember clearly a trip that we took as a family, and our eldest spoke up against her father, and he claimed that she was being disrespectful, turned to me and said I was to blame because I didn't put her in her place, and that it's my fault. And he drove recklessly at that time, scaring the whole entire family. He often reminded me that the children needed a father in their lives, so I had better change. And he wasn't around that often because I was too toxic. And so that's why he wasn't around. I was to blame for the fact that the children didn't have a father at the home as often as he should be. I was cut down and belittled whenever he had the chance to do so. He called me a lot of names in front of the children. I can't even tell you how many times I've heard that I was the worst wife ever. I was ill will and I was selfish. I often got the silent treatment. He would leave hours, if not days at a time without telling me. I got blamed for the lack of time that we spent together when he didn't even help with the kids. I was blamed for everything that went wrong in the home, for the home to be dirty, not clean, or not teaching the kids how to clean. I was blamed for it. There was one incident that I was blamed for too much EMF in the home, and I wasn't doing anything about it. So the next morning I woke up and there was a laptop placed right next to my head. All my communications with him had to be with love, and I needed to be, quote, mindful of my emotions when speaking with him. I couldn't say anything negative, and I wasn't able to share my feelings at all. I had to be very careful with the tone that I used whenever I answered the phone. I couldn't make any decisions on my own, and I was afraid to do so, but yet he wasn't around. And so when I had to make tough decisions on my own, I was afraid that I will be criticized or blamed or accused of something because of that. I had to check, double check, and triple check on all of my communications with him. Psychological abuse. I was getting constant accusations of being one way or the other. I remember he told me one time to just follow him, and wherever I went, I have to catch up with him or stay within the same speed as him. We were emerging onto the freeway, and there was an interchanging light ramp, and he went, but I had the red light, so I stopped. When I went, he called me disrespectful for not honoring his wishes. I was constantly walking on eggshells. Sometimes it felt like a roller coaster. I was quiet and timid at home as well as when we were together, as I was too afraid of the ramifications if I misbehaved or if I didn't listen. Yet, because I didn't smile, he said I was being unhappy and mean and selfish. I had to be this perfect wife, mother, career woman. And when I wasn't, I didn't get any hugs or kisses. I would just get criticized. I often felt that I wasn't enough. I also was told that I wasn't a very good communicator, that I confuse people every single time I speak. So I didn't speak that often. I was isolated from my family and friends. I was manipulated into believing that the reason why I couldn't speak with them or couldn't talk to them was because we had to focus on our marriage, and he felt that we didn't need the distractions. I was stressed and burnt out, but I couldn't show it because then I would be told that I was angry all the time, so I kept a lot of stuff in. I was unable to share my feelings at all. I had to portray this strong woman able to take care of everything with little to no help. I was forced to take care of his needs prior to our children's needs. So I had little to no time to myself. Sometimes I didn't even have days to shower or eat. I was married, but operating as a single mom. Physical abuse. I remember being physically abused a few times by my husband when I didn't follow orders. And he would do it in places where the children, or in days when the children were not home, so they couldn't see him hurting their mom. Spiritual abuse. He would often use scripture to demand submission. And when I didn't, he was saying that I was defying God by not respecting him and his wishes. He kept on saying he was a man of God and that I should respect him as he is the man of the household. He wrote in my prayer journal, asking God to forgive my wife, for she does not know what she is doing. I now realize she knows exactly what she is doing, and she's very calculated and cunning. Reading that broke my heart, and I questioned whether or not I really was, and if God will forgive me for being just like what he said I was. In my journal, I wrote down, I feel so alone. I just want to climb up and go back to my shell, but I can't. I have to be strong for my kids. They need me. And so that's what I did. I felt that I deserved to be treated this way, and that's one of many reasons why I stayed. I wasn't perfect. I made very bad decisions. And I felt that a lot of the stuff that I was feeling or going through was because I deserved it. It was my fault that he was treating me this way, and I had to fix it. I also wanted to keep the family together. It was important for me to have the kids have two parents in the home, because I knew how important it was to have a mother and a father raising children. There were also good and bad days, and I clung on to the good days, hoping that it was just a phase that we were going through and everything will get better. I honestly did not know that what I was experiencing was abuse. I just felt that I wasn't good enough, that if I only will be perfect, then what I'm feeling will go away. I would often ask myself, why is he being so mean to me? What did I do now? And I just couldn't understand my feelings. I was also afraid of being alone. I don't know how to do certain things in the home. And even though I was like parenting alone, for example, I don't know how to fix cars. And he would often tell me that you need a man, you need me to be around to take care of you. And that's why I held on to. I wanted him to be around because I did not know how I could do things on my own. I was fearful of that. There was also shame. I didn't want people to see that I wasn't strong and independent. That this image that I portrayed outwards wasn't the truth. So I was very shameful of what was going on in the home. I also had hope. I hoped that we could work this out. I hoped that both of us could get healing. I could change. I wanted to help him. I knew that he wasn't right. I wanted to help him. And again, there were good days, so I held tight to that belief that there'll be more good days and that he will come to see that he needs help as well. I was often told of the father's role in the home and the children's life, and it was in the best interest for the family if I changed. If I changed, he would stay in the children's lives. So I was working towards changing. I was praying that God would change me to keep the family together. I was isolated from my family and most of my friends. He only allowed me to have a few friends, which he approved of. So basically, I had no one. I was mostly alone. I was sad and reliant on him. I wanted our kids to have a closer relationship with their father. And I felt that if I would just change, he would come around more and they would have that relationship with him. He kept on saying that he was a man of God. And the Bible clearly says that I have to be submissive, and I haven't. I wasn't to him. So I prayed that God would change my heart and help me be more submissive so that we could save our marriage. And also in 1 Corinthians 7:10-11, Paul advises that a wife should not separate from her husband, and if she does, she should remain unmarried or reconcile to him. And so I felt that if I just hung on to the hope of his working through this and getting better and getting the help that we need, everything would change. And that's why I stayed. One of the few friends that I was allowed to speak to was a church friend. She knew something was going on, and she saw the signs and asked me to call this support number. At first, I said, it's not abuse. I just need to change. But she insisted every single time I saw her. And eventually, after a few months, I did make the call. Through that, I learned more and more about abuse and the signs of abuse. And I realized that it was me. I could finally put a name towards what I was feeling and what I was going through. I began to set boundaries. Weak ones, but at least I was trying to. I also was tired of crying and fighting in the family. I knew that wasn't right for the children to experience. And I got tired of it. I was tired of going crazy and being on an emotional roller coaster where it would be good and yet bad and everything would be my fault. I just couldn't handle it anymore. I was thinking about the kids and what they have been witnessing. Even though I was strong and closed the doors, sometimes they open the door and see me crying. I remember my son clearly opening the door and then shutting it and telling his siblings that mom's crying again. Dad was mean. And just knowing that he saw that at such a young age was like a turning point for me. I don't want him to ever see his mom crying like that hurt. I especially thought about our girls and the kind of relationships they will have when they get older. Do I really want them to stay in an abusive relationship? Or do I want them to foster in healthy relationships and know the signs and to stay away from those that hurt them? I also realized I found peace when he wasn't around. For those weeks and months that he wasn't around, the home was quiet, happy, peaceful. That was a good sign. Some of the support groups that I went to was faith-based. And through some of the sessions, I learned various versions of Malachi 2:16, which says that the Lord hates divorce and who covers his garment with violence. Basically saying, while divorce is discouraged, it also condemns violence within marriage. Abuse violates the covenant. Because also my husband left us, I learned about 1 Corinthians 7:15 that said, if an unbelieving partner separates, let it be so. I am not enslaved, and God has called me to peace. Also in 2 Timothy 3, basically says that we should have nothing to do with people who are lovers of themselves, lovers of money, proud, abusive, unforgiving, brutal, and not lovers of good. After realizing that there's some scriptures that says that, you don't need to be in an abusive relationship, I knew that that was my way out. I also realized that my kids would foster and flourish in a healthy, stable environment, that I can provide for them. They don't need both parents, especially if their father is not healthy. God will be their father and has been all along. I couldn't take being blamed anymore for being a horrible person. I needed peace, I prayed for peace, and I wanted peace. The therapist that we were seeing for our marriage counseling said to me, I need to keep my kids safe, and staying in the relationship would further damage the children. I couldn't do this to them. I already saw the effects that trauma already had on them, and the fact that it could affect them more if I decided to stay really hit me hard. Our eldest child also was a black sheep in the family because she always spoke out against her father. She knew something was wrong. She spoke out against it. And no one, especially me, wasn't listening because I chose to side with my husband in fear of the ramifications I will have. And it affected her. And I love her enough that I couldn't keep her in an unhealthy home and damage the rest of the kids. I learned through support sessions, that trauma bonding, I learned all about trauma bonding and the narcissistic abuse cycle, that they don't change, they rarely do. And the cycle will continue until I make a change. And because I was holding on to hope for so long, finally knowing this, gave me the way out. They call it a healing journey for a reason, and it's because it takes time. Years of abuse has a huge effect on people, and I am standing here today stronger than I was before because of the community of supporters that I have in my life. I have the love and support of my kids, my family and friends. I go on support groups. I still see my therapist every month to help me process my emotions that I still have. And I have a closer relationship with God. I wouldn't be here today without him. So a lot of this is because of him. And I am who I am today because of the role that he played in my life. I'm learning to set boundaries, and I am slowly unlearning the lies that have been told to me for years. It's a constant battle, and it's going to take some time, but it's what I need to do to be better than I was before. There are 3 things that help me cope and start healing. The first one is my kids. I am so grateful for who they are. They have forgiven me for my mistakes. They love me for all my flaws. Their love is truly, truly unconditional. And to them, I am enough. In their eyes, even when I cry, I am a strong mom. So they empower me every day to be better and to heal. And they support me 100%. And they are the reason why I'm standing in front of you all today. The second thing that helps me is support and therapy. Like I said, I still see my therapist, and having him in my life to guide me has been so helpful. I have wonderful friends and family that love me and love who I am. And obviously I have changed. I'm not the same person. And they're 100% behind me. And I wouldn't be here today without them. Lastly, the reason why I feel stronger today is because I told myself, I have one life to live. How do I want to live it? Do I want to live in the shadows and control of an abusive man? Or do I want to live the life that I deserve and thrive and be a good role model, not only to my children, to others who have experienced this or even going through this right now? So that's my story. I am not perfect. God knows I'm not. I make mistakes. I fall back, but I get up and I keep going. And I want you to know that you should do the same thing. You can heal. It will take time. And that no matter how many mistakes you made, always remember, you do not deserve to be abused or controlled by anyone. Do not give anyone that power. I believe in you, and I know you can do this. Till next time, please take care. Bye.